excited to be here, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. This is a really exciting topic, and it's filled with just really great insights and strategies. To give you all just a little bit of background on us, we both kind of our role here at Streamline and Inhabit is we work with our clients to really help them improve operational efficiency and drive more revenue through our technology. And if you've signed up for today's webinar, you're probably looking to scale and just really just get some more insights on homeowner acquisition. I think that, probably a lot of you can relate that, you may have entered into a market where it was solely focused around word of mouth. And I think now we're really experiencing owners changing hands, and really they have higher expectations. And so having a strategy around owner acquisition has never been so important. So if you stick around today, not only are you guys going to just really get some valuable insights, but we're going to be giving away a guidebook at the end that gives you and your team strategies that you can implement right away. So we do have a quick commercial break, and I'm going to pass it over to Jordan, and then we will get started.
Yes, I'll be your commercial. But really quick, I just wanted to make sure everyone on this call was personally invited by our entire Inhabit family. We have a brand new series. It's called Rise and Shine, the Vacation Breakfast Series. We are bringing conference-like educational topics, conversations to you for free. So we understand conferences are extremely expensive. Sometimes you and your entire team are not able to travel for them. And we are bringing those conversations right to your backyard. So we have 15 stops that we are working on building out our entire calendar for before the end of this year. So I want to be able to share the first 3 that we have. On Tuesday, June 25th, we're going to be in Palm Springs, California. On Thursday, June 27th, we'll be in San Diego, California. And then we will be hosting Breckenridge, Colorado on Tuesday, July 16th. There is a QR code on your screen that you've seen. If you've not already scanned it, go ahead and scan it now. This will take you to the registration page for Rise and Shine, and you can complete the form just to say that you want more information about upcoming dates. These are the first 3 dates that we have right now locked on, but we'll be happy to share any more incoming information on this. But this will be a not miss for you. It's a half-day event. We'll be serving you breakfast. We'll have some incredible leaders throughout our industry being able to speak on just topics that you all are interested on. And then in the forum, you can actually let us know about things that you're interested in learning about. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jordan. Yeah, I agree. This is going to be a great series for all of you, really just bringing you that personal experience. Like Jordan said, it's expensive to travel, but we're coming to your backyard, and we would love for you to join us while we're in town. So we'll go ahead and kind of get started, and I'm going to pass it over to Josh to talk a little bit about some of the content that we're going to be sharing with you all today.
Awesome. Thank you, Kaylin. So this is kind of the overview of the presentation, just on a simplified level. So we're first going to talk about how to value these leads. And really, this is kind of the lens I want everybody to start looking at this through when they start looking at the true value and just how to handle these leads through every step of the sales process. We're then going to talk about how to drive lead exposure and what marketing avenues that you could deploy to get your brand in front of potential homeowners. Then we're going to show you what elements that you want to have on your website in order to convert that exposure into qualified leads into your pipeline. And then from there, once they land in the pipeline, we're going to help arm you with strategies and different software that you can leverage to be able to be a better closer and have a higher conversion rate on those leads, and hopefully get some of those properties into your management program.
Perfect. Yeah. And, each phase of this sales process is so important, and they all work together, right? So first, I kind of want to start off with the first thing, right? And understanding the true value of these leads. So Josh, can you talk to us a little bit about how companies should be looking at the value of these leads across their entire organization?
Yeah. So before I kind of dive into that, I usually actually like to ask managers, a simple question. I like to ask, is the goal of this business to pass it down to the next generation, or are you looking to exit this company and ride off into the sunset? That second one to me sounds like a cool plan. And for those of you that is kind of what you're going to end up doing, I would go ahead and click the next slide real quick. This is kind of how I want you all to start looking at like the value of these potential leads, right? So it's a simple equation, and you could get more granular with this. You can dive deep into like expenses and things like that, but this is kind of going to show you like the property lifetime value. So the simple equation is take your average annual revenue for your entire portfolio, multiply that by your commission rate, and then take that number and multiply it by the average retention time. So in other words, how long on average do properties stay in your portfolio for management? So if you're to take that quick math, and let's say if it was, $60,000 per property, and you had a 3-year average retention time with a 30% commission rate, your property lifetime value would be around $54,000. So I want you all also to do one more thing for me. And it sounds kind of strange, but it actually works. And I think that a lot of you can benefit from this, but I want you to take that number and I want you to sit down with your teams, and I want you to kind of go through and take that number and hang it on the wall. So if you can real quick, stop sharing the screen real quick for me. I want to show you this number. So this number, $54,000 of property lifetime value, this number creates opportunity within your business, right? So, and I want you to kind of reflect on that for a moment and convey to all of your team that this number creates opportunity within our business. And everybody sees it every time on the wall. So when your reservation agents are answering the phone, when people are getting these leads, they're handling these leads with that value in mind, and that value equates to opportunity for them. So that's kind of how I'd like you guys to really take that number and convey that to the rest of your team.
Yeah, love that, Josh. I think it's extremely important, like you said, to really see that value. So then you can create strategies within your team. But without knowing the why behind something, I think that it can be challenging to really be focused, right? And really see the value in these leads. So now that we kind of understand the value, and when you sit down with your team and you guys kind of figure out what that value means to you, then we want to talk a little bit about how to drive lead exposure. And, let's talk a little bit about that, Josh. What would you say the two main things are when it comes to driving more exposure, and what marketing strategies should managers be focused on?
Kaylin, you kind of mentioned something early on in the introduction where a lot of managers have traditionally been reliant on word of mouth, and a lot of them have been reliant on a lot of agent referrals, from real estate transactions. And today that's kind of slowed down a little bit, right? And what I think people need to start doing is really taking their brand seriously and taking their brand and making sure it's out there in the marketplace. When you think about like getting the brand out there, right? Like it could be an owner could be looking at you or trying to find you because they're either new to the marketplace, they either bought an asset or inherited the asset, or they're currently upset with their current management company that they're with today. Where else are they going to find you besides word of mouth? I mean, they're literally going to have to go to a search engine like Google and type in the city property management or a phrase very similar to that. And really the only two services or solutions, if you will, that can get your brand out there in front of those prospective owners is search engine optimization, or SEO, and paid search management. So those are really the two that we would recommend that you deploy to be able to get access to or exposure to these potential homeowners.
Yeah, I would agree so. And I think too, we're going to go into what is SEO, right? What is paid search? But before we do, I think what's really powerful about these two strategies is if you do them together, right, you're going to have double the exposure. So we'll go ahead and dive into what is SEO, what should you be focused on when working with a company and deploying SEO?
Yeah, so search engine optimization, first what you want to do, this doesn't sound crazy, but you want to find a company that has the blueprint for this industry. I kind of want to lead with that, because if you're going out there and you're hiring an SEO or a marketing firm that doesn't understand the industry, they don't really know how to structure the content. They don't know what backlinks to go after, things of that nature, right? So you want to make sure, first off, that whoever you're aligning yourself with has this blueprint, understands the market. So search engine optimization is a lot of work, as I just mentioned. A lot of the work goes into content development, optimizing the content, building backlinks and citations, and then of course optimizing your local profiles, and then of course providing like detailed ROI reporting, right? So reporting is a big one. And again, it goes back to making sure you're aligning yourself with a company that has exposure to this industry, because in the reporting, you got to understand the value of these homes. You got to understand how to attribute and track the value. And then also too, if reservations come in from doing SEO, you want to be able to correlate that back to get a true accurate picture of ROI. I always tell managers, you want to get as close to investing and not gambling when you're looking at the line item of marketing on your P&Ls. So having and ensuring that you have accurate reporting is almost mission critical. So let's go to the next slide. We'll talk about paid search. So, as Kayla was saying, these two kind of play hand in hand, and I'll kind of explain a little bit as to why. So paid search, just like SEO, is a lot of work. There's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of data that comes in, and there's a lot of adjustments. You gotta manage all of the bids, you gotta expand keywords constantly, add negative keywords. You have to do a lot of A/B testing. There's even stuff like bidding on keywords on time of day, right? So for us, a lot of times what we'll bid on are keywords around property management later in the evening, because that's when people are doing a lot of the research when they get home, right? So just silly things like that. Even bidding on geographic locations is a really big one as well. So, these two things actually play hand in hand, because let's say over time, search engine optimization really starts to pick up steam and you're starting to rank higher on Google. Well, what happens is, let's say I click to that web page, but I don't actually end up converting into a lead and I leave. Well, paid search can pick up the slack a little bit and start to follow those potential prospects everywhere they go. So if they go to Facebook or Meta or X, or if they go to like their favorite, news source, they're
So
going to
what
start
you're saying
seeing
is we're going to
ads.
start stalking people, Josh.
Yeah, we're going to start stalking people. You got it. Yeah. So we're going to stalk them wherever they go, and you're going to have a second opportunity to get them to fall into your pipeline.
Yeah, that's great. Like you said, those two strategies are crucial. I mean, in working with a company that's, focused on the vacation rental space is extremely important, but also understands your market and can meet with your team on a regular basis and talk strategy, because there's going to be even events in your area that you know of that you can work with these teams and say, hey, we need to go after these keywords, or we need to do this with when it comes to content. Right. And I think also too, when it comes to content, creating content, not only for your guest, I think a lot of us have been always focused on creating content for guests, but what about the content for owners, right? There's a lot of people that just want education, and the more value that you can bring them is going to win that homeowner. So we'll kind of go into the next topic. We've talked a lot about the value of leads. We've talked about driving lead exposure through some marketing strategies. Now I want to talk about converting leads, right? And I'm going to pass it over to Josh, but right, once we've gotten the traffic, right, what would you say, how are we going to convert these leads?
Yeah. Yeah. So, just to kind of echo that a little bit and dive a little deeper, right? Like these, a lot of managers, they're, obviously, like we just talked about SEO and paid search, but a lot of you managers out there are investing a lot of money into things like postcards, networking with real estate agents. That's more of a time investment, right? You're also, for more aggressive managers, are making outbound calls, or, even smart enough to tap into your historical guests to try to convert them into owners, right? Well, whatever that marketing medium is, you're having to send them to something like a landing page that conveys that value proposition and that stands out from the rest of the pack in the marketplace, right? So having a landing page that really talks about everything that you do and structures it in such a way that is that will entice these people to convert is very critical. So if you could, let's click the next slide. And I want to talk a little bit about like the anatomy of these pages. So I see it a lot where property managers, they may have this page, but it's just a giant wall of content. And for pretty much everybody out there that, has like me, I mean, I have like, if I'm browsing the internet, I have about the attention span of a goldfish, right? Like I'm there for like 3 seconds, and if I don't see what I like, I'm out, right? And pretty much everybody is guilty of that these days. So you want to have that content, but you want to structure that content in such a way that's visually stunning or aesthetically pleasing, but still really touches on the elements that they want to learn more about, right? So when I kind of look through, or when I kind of coach a lot of these managers on, is making sure that you have, number one, like a brief mission as to what you're going to do for that owner, like what's in it for them. You also want to touch on how are you going to generate them more revenue, right? Like, like Streamline, do you have integrations that are incredible, right? That drive, more exposure and, higher conversion rates on OTAs? Are you investing in digital marketing? Do you have revenue management tools like RevMax? Do you have the ability to pierce inside the market and understand pricing fluctuations? Do you have tools that will allow you to do that? And if so, you need to be talking about that. The next thing you really want to drive home is property care. One thing that you really have to take a step back and understand is that, these owners have worked their entire lives to be able to afford these properties, right? Like this is special to them. It's an emotional thing, right? So conveying that you're going to preserve their property, and so for the next upcoming years, so they can continue to monetize that and come back and enjoy it themselves, is something you definitely want to drive home. You also want to be able to tell them you're going to provide them a lot of reporting transparency. So softwares like Streamline, you have an owner application from your cellular device, and the owners can see in real time just how their property is performing. They can see access to reports, work orders, you name it. And if you have something like that, that's very easy to explain on this landing page. You also want to have testimonials to back up everything you just touched on, and definitely, calls to actions for like brochures, and then contact forms like the one you're seeing here on the screen, where you're going to give them something in return in exchange for their contact information. So that could be as simple as a rental evaluation or something along those lines.
Love it. Yeah. And before we move on too, I think you're right. Like really creating a landing page that's meaningful, right? Instead of a wall of content, right? Break up some of that content into visuals, maybe even a video. I've seen a lot of companies, right, where they'll hire, someone to really do a video for their entire team and talks about their value proposition. And that really stands out, right? I don't think a lot of people are doing that, but it really provides that personal touch, which is kind of what we're getting away from nowadays. So the more and more that you can do that with these owners, the more and more you're going to win them over. And then obviously some call to action items as well, but really talking about owner transparency, like you said, Josh, is extremely important. And, use the Streamline owner portal as part of that value proposition, right? We provide transparency to you where you can look at profit and loss reports, month-end statements, and really just have visual into how their property is performing. So awesome. We'll dive into one of my favorite parts, closing leads, right? I think this is what we all want to do, right? And so, when we talk about closing leads, there's a couple questions that I want to ask you guys, and be honest in the chat if you can. But how many of you are still managing these leads out of your inbox today? Whether that's they're coming in from your website, real estate agents, what are you doing with those leads? Are you manually touching them? And then do you have the ability to see your business development agent's pipeline? So do you have visibility into the sales process, into measuring results? And then are you tracking where your leads are coming from? So some of you today may be investing in a ton of marketing, right? Are you tracking how you converted that lead? Was it from paid search? Was it from an email campaign? That's extremely important. So we're going to kind of dive into a couple of things if you want to go over to the next slide. I think that this is extremely important to have a CRM and streamline inside of our software. We are actually, believe it or not, one of the only property management softwares in the industry that has a homeowner acquisition CRM. Most people will have them for guests, but we have one solely for owners. Right. And it just gives you visibility into the sales process and measuring results. So these are the modules that we've built inside of our software. So we're going to talk a little bit about prospecting, right? That communication with your owners, how to manage your pipeline effectively and create a sales process. What is your contract management process, right? Can you see when an owner's opened a contract? Reporting transparency, and then rental projections.
All right. So let's first talk about the prospecting center. So prospects, the best way to look at prospects, it's that little area before they actually become a lead, right? And this is more for property managers that are really aggressive. They want to go out there and hunt, right? They want to go out and make outbound efforts to be able to drum up qualified leads to fall into the rest of the pipeline. So, this area, what it does, it allows you to upload data that you can go out and accumulate. So that could be county tax records, it could be absentee owner data. And we actually have like partners that we can refer you that actually have access to this data and they don't arbitrage it, right? So this is the direct access to this absentee owner data that you can go out and get. So that's one big difference between like Streamline and some of these other solutions is that we're not trying to resell this data to you. We're recommending people that you can go out and leverage, gather the intel, gather the data, and then upload it to this prospecting area where you can start to drum up qualified leads. If you want to click next slide.
And really quick to add to the absentee owner data, Josh, is that the absentee owner data, right? It's going to give you all the information about the homeowner that you can create lead list inside of the prospecting area, but it will also give you information like email, phone number, mailing address, right?
Yeah, you can do a lot of stuff too with those email and phone numbers. We can probably show you some extra things you can do on the digital marketing side as well. Let's go ahead and click the next one. So, once you actually either have a qualified lead or you create a qualified lead off of your outbound efforts, inside of the CRM, you have full pipeline management and you can customize the flow of your different stages of your deal inside the CRM. So this is really giving you like a true area where you can incubate these leads properly rather than relying on the good old inbox to manage these valuable leads. As I kind of expressed earlier in this webinar, these leads have quite the value to them. And I think that in order to properly incubate these leads, you need a system that's going to help you be efficient and keep track of all the leads as time goes on. You could also communicate directly out of the lead management area. You can store documents. This is really good for, let's say if you get competitor intel, right? Maybe it's a competitor contract, brochure, or proposal. You can start to accumulate this data and refer back to it easily versus trying to hunt through it inside your inbox. You could also track down the lead sourcing. So, Kayla and I have been talking about how many different areas or marketing mediums that you managers get leads from. Being able to correlate those leads and those values and definitely the closed won values to lead source is very critical. So again, it'll get you closer to investing and not gambling in your marketing efforts.
Awesome. So we'll go to the next slide and talk a little bit about communication. As Josh mentioned, once that prospect becomes a lead, right, it's important to have sequences. And inside of Streamline in the documents and templates area, you can actually build out triggers, which is awesome, right? Because it will automate a ton of the communication with these new leads. So for example, a new lead enters into the prospecting area or to the lead area, right? It's converted into a lead. And then you can create a trigger X day, send this email trigger, right? 3 days later, do a follow-up call, right? So there's a sequence that you can build to start automating a lot of that communication with these owners. And we also have we have a phone system with StreamPhone where you can send text messages. So you're really hitting these owners with different communication, right? Emails, text, phone calls. And a lot of that, again, is automated through the system. And of course, contract management. I know a lot of owners today are using, third-party systems like DocuSign, right? And I think it gets really frustrating for a lot of managers because they're having to use multiple softwares to manage different things, right, of their business. And so inside of Streamline, we have the contract management system under StreamSign. And you can send out homeowner contracts through the system. You can keep track of, the status of that contract. So you can see if that owner opened the contract. Maybe if they've opened it 5 times, we need to pick up the phone and call them, right? So it just gives you visibility into monitoring the contracts. And again, bringing all of your technology into one centralized location. So we'll talk a little bit about reporting transparency, and I'm going to pass it over to Josh for this one.
Awesome. Yeah. So reporting transparency, we've been discussing it this whole webinar, but the nice part about it, it allows you to like track the success. So whether it's you or for a lot of the larger managers out there or more aggressive managers that actually staff a business development rep, you want to be able to understand what they're doing, right? Like what is their efforts look like? How many leads are in my pipeline? And, kind of almost more importantly, like what does the future look like? What does growth look like? And sometimes what happens is, if you start to see a lot of leads that are kind of getting closer to a closed one, you may want to start thinking about staffing up and, having a CRM that will empower you and give you that inside view into, the performance of your business development efforts is pretty critical. So
awesome. And then we'll talk a little bit about rental projections. And Josh and I always laugh because a lot of managers come to us and they say they spend hours creating these manual rental projections. And some of you can probably relate to that. But, inside of Streamline, we have rental projections that you can create, right? You type in an address and you can pull comps similar to like a CMA. And you're able to pull comparable properties that are similar to that homeowner's property, right? And give them data. And so not only does this really help you stand out from your competition, it's going to save you a ton of time from doing all of that manual work and really sets you apart from your competition. So once a lead comes in, right, part of your sales process could be to pull a rental projection and add that to your presentation, right, when you're speaking to these homeowners.
So real quick, just to add to that, this is great because it'll allow you to download it as a PDF, and you could get requests from like real estate agents all the time, or you could go outbound, right? Like let's say if you see a particular property hit the MLS in a community that you're trying to grow into, what I've seen a lot of managers do is download this as a PDF and go outbound and reach out to the listing agent and say, here's what I think that property can make. And what happens is a lot of times they'll take that projection and they'll leverage that projection as closing ammunition to help them close that deal. And then 9 times out of 10, they end up using your management company to manage the property. Also, this is really cool. Now, I know a lot of you are doing this, and I apologize, but a lot of you are sending out postcards, right? I think everybody might have tried this at least once, but imagine downloading this, printing it out, and then putting it in an envelope and mailing that out. I've seen a couple of managers actually go to that level where they print these out, send it in a postcard, or send them in an envelope. And if you put yourself in like the shoes of the owner, and if you open up an envelope and you get a rental projection right then and there, that's going to trigger a completely different emotional response than a postcard would. So those are 2 different things that I think you all could leverage this tool for and be more efficient in driving those leads.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we thank you all so much for your time today. And we want to leave you guys with a gift, right? And our team put together a homeowner acquisition book for you and your team to be able to go through and implement strategies, right? It's going to dive in deeper into these strategies that we talked about today. But yeah, we really appreciate you guys' time today and hope that this was valuable information that you and your team can take away.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, Kaylin, if anybody out there wants to talk strategy to either Kaylin or myself or another member of the team, please reach out. We're totally, like, as Kaylin mentioned, an open book of information. We have a lot to give, and we've seen it all. So we'd love to chat with you about helping you guys scale up your inventory for sure.
Yep. And if you want to download a copy of this ebook, just scan the QR code and our team will personally send it to you.